I could stay awake just to hear you breathing. Watch you smile while you are sleeping. While you're far away and dreaming. I could spend my life in Ben Affleck's sweet surrender. But director Michael Bay is a film offender. Oh, every moment spent with this film is complete torture. When you see in Bruce Willis's eyes, his acting is like he's asleep, 'cause I hate Armageddon and I do want to miss that shit. That's right, Comet movies and not Armageddon on this episode of Attack of the Killer Podcast.
Attention planet Earth and beyond. Stay tuned for Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 Yay.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 223 of Attack of the Killer Podcast. This episode is called Comet Horror, and we'll be talking about movies that feature comets as the cause of all the trouble in that particular movie. I am your host, Insane Mike, and I have never actually seen Armageddon, yet I still feel I can voice my negative opinion, because that's what the internet is truly for. If this is your first time listening to Attack of the Killer Podcast, let me tell you a little bit about us. Attack of the Killer Podcast loves long walks along the beach and back rubs. Our turn-ons are people who are honest, good listeners, and have 3 nipples. Our turn-offs are switches. We are also a horror movie podcast. We're a group of friends who pick a topic, discuss movies within that topic. And we talk openly and freely, so as if we're just hanging out, chatting amongst ourselves, like the friends we are. So be warned, there's probably going to be some spoilers. Now, I would like to take a moment now and give a very special shout out to the newest member of our attackers. Colby Keith and the Gore Score podcast have become our newest Patreon supporters, and as such are now official attackers. The Gore Score podcast is featured on our podcast network, the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. So I want to thank the hosts of the Gore Score for supporting our show. Awesome. Now, you too can become an attacker, just like the gang over there at the Gore Score, by going to jointheattackers.com, all one word. When you become an attacker, you can get so much more than just a shout out on the show. You can get your very own membership card and certificate. You can also get various other perks, such as bonus episodes, special videos, video series such as Insane Mike's 1 Minute Top 10 list, and Killer Critiques. You can also get some of my very own artwork with Mikey's Monsters, where I turn you into a monster of my choice. And even an official Attack of the Killer podcast t-shirt. It's all depending on what tier you pick. So all you got to do is go to our site, jointheattackers.com, pick the tier that best suits you, and become an official member of the Attackers, just like the Gore Score did. Also, make sure to listen to the Gore Score right on the PFPN at thepfpn.com. Speaking of Attackers, it is now time to introduce you to the podcast crew. Do you know who his favorite of Santa's reindeer is? Comet. Andy, everybody!
Wow. Hi.
Do you know what his favorite sci-fi channel is? Comet TV. Dad!
I just want to make it clear, if this is your first time listening, that Mike does not normally always sing the intro, so don't give up on us right away, if you're still listening for some reason.
What does he use to clean his bathroom? Comet with bleach. Jason!
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. I second what Tad said.
Yes, and also, I want to relay that Mike records all his singing in high def, because you either have to be either high or deaf to actually enjoy it.
It's so funny, I forgot the laugh. And now, our very special guest, he's the director of theaters and digital experience at the Adler Planetarium. He also had a horse when he was a child. Can you guess the horse's name? Elmer's. So our very own space and stuff expert, Mike Smail, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here.
Hey, thanks for joining us, Mike. It's awesome to have you on the show and getting to meet you. This is great.
Yeah, like 223 episodes. We've never had a technical advisor on an episode before. This is cool.
So, first of all, congratulations on the cool name. And secondly, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
So you mentioned what I do. I work for the Adler Planetarium in Chicago, Illinois. And I've actually spent most of my professional career in various planetariums and museums, science museums around the country, here in Chicago, but also down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and in Columbus, Ohio, which is where I'm from. And I spent a lot of time doing space stuff, but a lot of time also big fan of music. It's been a rough year not being able to go out and see live music so much, but I can hole up in my spare room and listen to records and still make out okay.
Yeah. One day, hopefully, we'll all get to see live shows again.
Well, that's funny because that's how I met Mike, was at a Weezer show. Surprise.
Yep. That's where we met.
Cool.
Very cool.
So you talk to people at concerts? That's weird.
The Weezer community is definitely weird. They mostly talk online, but they do. At one point, there were these things called concerts, and like people from different areas would like get into one building and watch one band together in person. And sometimes you would like talk to the person next to you. It was this thing. I don't know. You guys probably don't remember, but
it was a little weird. But it works.
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Mike.
Yes, definitely welcome. Thanks for being here. And thanks for setting everybody straight on all the space stuff in these movies.
Yeah. Looking forward to
it. You too can become a space expert like Mike by subscribing to Shudder. Shudder is the Netflix for horror. With over 1 million subscribers, Shudder is the best streaming service for horror shows, movies, podcasts, and original content. And you can try a month for free of Shudder thanks to us here at Attack of the Killer Podcast. Just enter our promo code AOTKP and get on board with all of the cool kids and start watching Shudder today. Again, with your first free month, thanks to us. Again, the promo code is AOTKP. Get that first month for free and become a space expert. Like, you can watch Shudder while studying space and stuff when you're in college doing your thesis on space stuff.
Results not guaranteed or approved.
So speaking of space, here's Tad with what we watched.
All right, let's kick it right over to Andy. What have you watched?
I mostly watched stuff on Amazon Prime, and they were documentaries. I watched a doc called "Survival of the Film Freaks" that's available on Prime, and it talks about the evolution of cult films and what makes a cult films as it went through, 35 millimeter to a VHS to Laserdisc and all this and that, and how it was getting progressively more difficult as things became as mom and pop shops went out of business due to Blockbuster and all that. But now, since people have a hunger for these films, they're becoming more available with online retailers like Vinegar Syndrome and stuff like that. Joe Bob is in it. Adam Green is in it, and they have David Lynch cussing in it, which is really good too. Joe Bob talks about that. He thinks it's hilarious. It's on Prime, and it's free with your Prime subscription. Another one I watched was since I'm a big Roger Corman fan. It was basically a movie that was produced and made, but it was actually made not to even be released. And that was the actual original Fantastic Four movie from 1993.
Yes.
Oh yes.
The documentary is actually called Doomed, the original Fantastic Four movie, I believe. And it really gives you a lot of insight to the politics of film rights, let's say. And I'll just leave it at that. But I mean, it's probably for the best that the film didn't get released because it's you think some of the Fantastic Four movies that we have aren't that good.
It's better than those.
Well, have you seen it?
Hey.
I have seen it. I still have a bootleg VHS of it. Yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad. I think like I always thought the Thing makeup in it looked pretty cool, but then again, that's also grainy VHS, so there's probably dozens of seams that
There's a charm to it, but it's bad.
And I did notice that the guy who actually played Ben Grimm, not the guy that was actually in the suit, the guy who played Ben Grimm played Super Freddy in Part 5. Just kicking the connecting those dots. And I also watched one of my Blu-rays that's been collecting dust on the shelf, and it almost could be in this one, but it's not a comet movie, it's an eclipse movie, which is probably pretty rare. And that was Bloody Birthday with Billy Jacoby and I don't know who else is in that. Really, really different. It's a Killer Kid eclipse movie. If that is, I don't even think we could even do a show on that. That's kind of like in a category all its own. But
the movie also has Julie Brown.
Downtown Julie Brown. Not Downtown.
No, not down. The other Julie Brown.
This is the chick that plays the accordion, right?
You're thinking Judy Tenuta. Julie Brown was a comedian / singer.
But didn't Julie Brown play wasn't she on Hollywood Squares and stuff too?
She might have been on Hollywood Squares, but nice. Well, Julie Brown's a redhead. Are you still thinking Julie Brown? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she probably her most famous role of all time was the coach in Clueless.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and the Earth Girls Are Easy. She was in that too, which was a movie that was based on one of her songs.
Welcome to the Julie Brown podcast.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And you get to see Julie Brown completely naked in Bloody Birthday. So there you go.
Yeah. They this little pervy little blonde-haired girl, which I'm confused about the genetics in this family. One of them's like a redhead, and one of them's like blonde. But okay, whatever. But her little sister charges her pervy schoolmate boys like a quarter so they can look through her closet door into Julie Brown's room to see her dance naked, I guess, because she has to dance topless in order to actually change clothes. So another typical 80 really cheesy 80s film. But yeah, those are the ones that I wanted to touch on because Bloody Birthday could have very well have been another one of those unwrapped films. So that's what I watched.
Excellent. Jason, what have you watched?
Well, it's an exciting time. It's the end of the year, and we know what's coming, the awards show, and it's time to cram all the films from this year, which there's been less of, but there's still a lot. And we're all trying to catch up and watch as many as we can because at the end of the year, it's top 10 list time.
And we all procrastinate and then get competitive within 1 month left.
Yes, we do.
Right. I've been checking the numbers daily.
My mind's going to be so small, dude.
We need to get Andy competitive is what. So the first one I'll talk about, I loved it. It's The Craft Legacy.
I watched it too.
It's directed by Zoe Lister-Jones. I know, right? I don't really, it's kind of her second movie. And It's damn good. It's basically, it's a straight up remake, but all four of them girls are just awesome, and the story's really great, and there's so much going on. I totally recommend it. Did you like it, Ted? I know you. When you asked me about it, you didn't seem enthused, but
I went in expecting to not like it. I knew I probably wouldn't hate it because I'm pretty open to everything. Like I'm a defender of Black Christmas remake. Like I watch all kinds of stuff that people really dunk on, and I really enjoyed this. I mean, it has David Duchovny in it.
Yep,
it was just really cool, and he's a hateable asshole. But yeah, the girls in this were great. It's just a modern telling. It's I think it's too bad that this was clear this was going to go theatrical until COVID hit, and now it's just sort of a blip on the radar. And I feel like this would have been really great for like high school age girls to watch. Like it obviously wasn't. I wasn't the audience, but I really did enjoy it, and I not connected like personally to the characters, but I just being an outsider in high school and sort of being bullied and dealing with assholes, like I really liked that aspect of the story, and it wasn't trying really hard to be woke or a feminist movie by any means, but the original was a feminist movie. So it's not necessarily, when people say remake, there is a difference between remake and reboot. I think this would be more reboot because it feels like it's not beat for beat. It does have a lot of different story elements to it, and it could exist in the same world. So, but I did like it,
and it was put out by Blumhouse. So
yeah,
it's good. It's quality. Definitely recommend it. Next one I'll talk about. Oh my goodness, Possessor, directed by Brandon Cronenberg.
I'm so bad. I was supposed to watch it this weekend, and I haven't got to it yet.
I loved it. I liked it a lot, because I like everything, but the movie's pretty fucked. I mean, it's fucked up. I mean, it's a Cronenberg movie. That's all I'm saying. I mean, and the boy, he also did Antiviral. I don't know if you guys saw that a few years ago, but it's another like super smart germs inside your body kind of thing. And
well, sort of like going back, connecting it to something. I was talking to Scott Schreiner from Weezer, and he was like, asking me for recommendations. I said, I haven't seen Possessor yet, but I'm planning on watching it here this weekend. Didn't get to it, but he was like, I know what he likes. He's always asking for recommendations on fucked up movies. And I'm like, this is probably right up your alley. And he texted me. He was like, this was awesome, but it is not fun. I will probably never watch it again. What the fuck? But it was awesome. So like, he's like, you're right. That's my kind of movie where I watch it and I'm done and I never want to see it again. But he said it was, yeah. And he's like, I can't really talk about it without spoiling anything. So he's like, just watch it. Just watch it.
Yeah, just watch it. It's super cool. I mean, yeah, it takes place in the future. There's basically the technology where you can like go into a computer, but you can go and take over somebody's body. And
imagine that, a Cronenberg doing a body horror movie.
I know. So it's bleak and dark, and it's, like what happens when, just the identity of you, but you're being someone else, and the toll that takes on someone who does that a lot. And if you do bad things with that, and it's deep, but it's fucked up, but I would totally recommend it. And the last thing is probably, I don't want to say it's my favorite movie of the year yet, but it's got to be in the top 3, 2, 1. The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
Woo!
Holy crap! I can't explain. This movie is so amazing. It walks such a great line of being a horror movie, but it's also that's super deep and emotional and scary but
funny
and dark. But it's the funniest fucking movie I've probably ever seen. I can't. This dude's sense of humor is the greatest. So it's written and directed by Jim Cummings,
starring
Jim
Cummings.
I can't even, guys. You gotta just go right now. Just go watch it. It's It's my favorite
All right, I'll
thing
see you guys
ever. No, I'll wait. It's so good. I hate overselling things, but man, it's definitely a favorite. And it's also, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I went into it and I watched it and I was blown away. And then I hit IMDb and I'm like, "Who's this lead guy?" I'm like, "Oh, he fucking wrote it and directed it. What the fuck?"
Which I normally have which I think backfires more times than it succeeds. But oh my god, this one's so good. It's the last appearance of Robert Forster, and I know Dad talked about it last episode, but again, it's outstanding, and I can't wait to watch his first movie. When I get off this podcast, I'm going to go watch it.
Yes,
I can't wait. So, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, it's amazing. Everybody go see it. That's what I've watched.
Okay, I'm going to kick it over to our guest, Mike Smail. What have you watched?
So what I've been watching in the last couple weeks, I rewatched 1917, the British World War I film that came out at the end of last year. Nice, good story for a war movie, and the gimmick really works. It's not a single shot movie, but they shoot it so it looks like it's one entire continuous shot, and it's great. That really helps drive the movie, and it's consistent action, right amounts of suspense, kind of sprinkled in throughout it. It's not an overwhelming like go something in your face the entire time, but rewatched that for the first time in a while. That was enjoyable.
Did you see it in theaters when it came out?
I did.
Yeah. I saw it in theaters, and I'm afraid to rewatch it because I'm like, it's sort of like Dunkirk, where I'm like, this is a movie that is best experienced in a theater. I don't know if I want to experience it, and like, I'm afraid I won't like it as much.
Yeah, same with Dunkirk. I mean, I saw it in the theater, but I've since, I've watched it on the home TV as well. And yeah, it's obviously not quite the same, but it still holds up.
And I know everybody knows about the gimmick, and I hate calling it a gimmick because it's something that's amazing, but like you get over that fast, but this does something to you. It being one
real time, yeah.
I mean, it really puts you in a place that no other movie really does. It's a wonderful feeling. And then, did they get the Oscar for the cinematography?
I think so.
Because oh my gosh.
Does it almost make you feel like a bystander as opposed to a viewer?
Yes.
Andy, I'm not kidding.
Oh, yeah.
You are, it's incredible.
You're running along with them. Like it's
amazing.
That's good shit right there.
To even let your mind wander for a second to just how they choreograph this, and you just can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Thousands of actors. Oh, it's incredible. Yes.
So going from 1917, then to kick it down a couple notches and then maybe bring it back on theme a little bit. I rewatched a movie that I saw my first year here in Chicago. It's a movie called Shockwaves. It is a late 70s. It's a bad movie. Like, don't go watch it. Right? It's
underwater Nazis. Come on,
underwater like Nazi zombies, and they're like the slow walking Nazi zombies. And to kill them, you just have to pull off their goggles, and like they fry. It's the first year I moved here, down the street from my first apartment, there was an art space that was running a 24-hour like Halloween movie thing, and I remember just popping in for a couple of them. This is where I saw this movie, and I remember thinking at the time like, this wasn't very. I mean, it feels like it could have been better, right? It's got like fucking Grand Moff Tarkin's in it, and Brooke Adams from Body Snatchers and Dead Zone. She's the female lead, but it's just really, really bad. It's this island resort people crash on, and they proceed to be chased around by really slow underwater Nazi zombies. And I probably won't watch that again for a very, very long time.
I think you estimate our audience when you say bad. They're tuning in right now. They just turned off the show. If they don't already own this on 4K.
Yeah, you were selling it more than you realized, dude.
Our shows at the planetarium, right? We make shows, and then I go out and sell them to other places, right? So I gotta think positive. Beyond that, I finally got around to watching Bill and Ted Face the Music. I had just been not seeing that for whatever reason. Good. It was fun, obviously. And I went back and I've got the first Bill and Ted basically memorized, but I also went back and rewatched the second one where they Bogus Journey, just because I hadn't seen that one probably since it came out. And yeah, it's it's no revolution in cinema or anything, but it's enjoyable. It's fun. There are a couple characters I thought didn't work out that well. I thought that them like setting up Bill and Ted's daughters as like parodies of themselves from 30 years ago was kind of weird and I didn't feel like that totally hit, but on the whole, it was enjoyable. It's good to see another movie, and it's got a theremin in it, right? So how many movies do you see with theremins?
Exactly.
And Kid Cudi playing like a nuclear physicist time travel expert, which cool. Where else are you going to see that? And then the last one I squeezed in totally because I was listening to last week's episode just to kind of get ready for this week and get ready for the flow of it. And y'all talked about Idle Hands, which is that movie's my jam. Like I like my horror. I like comedy with my horror, and that movie is like right at the nexus of what I like. So I rewatched it again. It's hilarious. It's so quotable. It's got so many like random. I mean, even the lesser known people do just fantastic jobs. But all the people that are in it and the way the whole story goes together without strange. Like I don't know. It never feels too outlandish, right? It totally is. It's a movie about this like possessed hand that shows up and sharpens its fingers and the.
But it feels grounded for some reason. Yeah,
it can't be microwaved, right? But it's relatable. So that's what I've watched over the past couple weeks.
That's a good list there. I guess we'll kick it over to you, Insane Mike. What have you watched?
I finally got to see Brandy and I marathoned them. We watched the Hell House LLC trilogy.
Oh,
so finally got around to watching those, and I really liked them. I feel like as the series goes on, they kind of diminish from film to film, but I'm one of those guys that if I'm watching a franchise and I'm hooked into the franchise, I will just keep following it just because of the characters of the story, and in this case, the environment of the Hell House was cool, and and I know I say it all the time, not to pick on acting, but some of the performances in like 2 and 3 take you out of the. I'll just say it takes you out of the found footage reality of it, where it's like, okay, these people are actors, they're not real people. You really get that feeling in some of the scenes in the latter two. But but again, I'm invested in the story, and I'm also fascinated that they made these 3 movies. I don't know how far apart between the years they made these movies, but every time they go into the Hell House, it looks literally exactly the same as the previous movie, with like where the one baking shelf had fallen over, or where somebody's bloody handprint is on the wall. It looks the same in each movie, and I was like amazed by that. Like, did they literally just film this back to back, at once and just release them at later times, or what? Because every time they enter back into the Hell House, it looks you're just thrown back into the previous film. So those were fun. I did finally also get around to watching again for the year-ender marathon of movie watching. I watched the Mortuary Collection.
Yes.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And I know, Tad, you brought it up a couple weeks or a couple episodes ago or whatever, and that's what kind of got me excited to watch it. And I really loved it. It was a great anthology film, but I like the connected dots of the anthology stories as well. And I don't know, I had a theory after watching it, and you can tell me what you think. But I feel like there's an extra story that's going on in the background through each episode, each little segment, and that has to do with the porn mustache doctor that literally shows up in every single story. He's in all the segments. Like in the first one, it's the woman in the bathroom who's stealing wallets from guys that are hitting on her and flirting with her, and one of the wallets is the doctor's wallet, as we see his driver's license. And then in the next one, he's the doctor to the kid the guy who ends up being pregnant. And then he is the doctor to the woman that's dying, and helps the guy figure out a way of euthanizing his comatose wife. And then in the third story, it's his house where the killer from the insane asylum attacks the babysitter and kills the kid. So it's his kid. So he's also in the funeral at the beginning of the movie with the wraparound story. And so I feel like there's a whole other storyline going on with this character just kind of in the background, because each of these stories is like most stories in an anthology horror film where they're morality tales. And I feel like there's a morality tale going on with this one. Obviously, there's infidelity because he's, flirting with other women when he's clearly married. And, he helps a guy figure out a way to kill his wife. And then his comeuppance is that his son is brutally murdered and eaten by a cannibal. So I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know if I'm overreading it or not, but that's kind of was my takeaway. And I had a lot of fun looking at it in that light. And then the last one I'll bring up is we watched this zombie movie called Blood Quantum, which was actually that was a really good one too. And I like the whole Native American angle on it all, and how Native American blood is immune to the zombie outbreak and stuff, and it does a pretty cool thing of starting off with the outbreak and then jumping ahead to basically post-apocalyptic. And Brandy and I had kind of a chuckle at the one scene where the main guy, the guy who kind of basically the Rick Grimes of the group, and he's Native American as well, so he's immune to the bites. And there's a scene where he takes off his shirt and he's just got bites all over his body, and we were kind of laughing at that because we're like. Yeah, we're kind of laughing at that because we're like, he's not very good at being a zombie survivalist. Yeah, sure, he's immune, but that doesn't mean you just let yourself get bit all the time.
I was just going to say that there's a great scene where at the beginning of the movie where you can, it basically, tells you nothing's really right. This fisherman, he goes out there, he comes back to this, like, I guess this bait shop or whatever, and he has already gutted the fish. And he pulls one of the fish out, and the thing's still flopping around, and it's already been gutted.
Yeah, really cool.
And it's basically show you how infected everything is.
Yep. Yeah. So it was a pretty cool zombie flick, absolutely. But that's what I watched.
Excellent.
Hey Tad, what'd you watch?
Oh, thank you for asking, Jason. I also am going in the vein of new stuff, but I don't want to go over the top and talk too much about it just because we're going to be talking about these soon. Yeah. So I sort of trying to balance, but I went to a theater for the first time since March. But to be fair, it wasn't even a public screening. The manager at our theater said, "Hey, I'm previewing this new movie. Do you want to come sit with me?" So it was 3 of us in the entire theater, but, I went and saw the new Blumhouse comedy horror Freaky with Vince Vaughn.
Awesome.
Yeah, and luckily this one will be hitting VOD here pretty soon. I believe Blumhouse said that it will run in theaters for 17 days, then hit VOD, because you guys will want to see this before the end of the year. Holy shit, man. This was a lot of fun. Maybe it was just being back in the theater. Maybe I just needed this at the time. It's directed and written by Christopher Landon, who did Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You. He's going in the same vein again, because Happy Death Day was basically horror Groundhog Day, and this is Freaky, and this is basically Freaky Friday the 13th. It is the body switch movie, but it's between a teenage girl in high school and a slasher who's played by Vince Vaughn, and you just forget how good Vince Vaughn could be. He's been doing more dramatic stuff recently, and he's fantastic in that. But he is so fucking funny, and he is great in this because he plays, for 90% of the movie, he plays a teenage high school girl going through emotions. Like she's bullied and she's not really well liked, and so but he's 7 foot tall, but he's playing a petite blonde. And he really pulls this off. It is so smart and cool. Like, it It doesn't beat around with too much explanation story. It jumps right in. It starts off as a great slasher, and then goes into the body switch, and it's so funny and really, really. This director has a saying. Christopher Landon, he's found his niche. I hope he just keeps getting to do these because it's so good. There's just so many funny little things I want to talk about, but I can't because I don't want to spoil anything. I want you guys to see it, but his performance in this is just outrageously good. There's scenes where he's like playing the girl and she has a crush on the guy, and they're like making out, and he's making out with like a high school boy. It's so funny. So yeah, check out Freaky. Wait until it's out of theaters and go see it because it's going to be on VOD here pretty soon. The next one is a dramatic turn. Is definitely not fun or funny, but it was really good. It's called The Dark and the Wicked. It will be hitting Shudder early next year, but it's on VOD right now. This one's really fucking sad and dark. This is actually by Brian Bertino, who did The Strangers and Monster. This is a down and dirty, scary horror movie. This woman goes back to see her father, who's slowly dying. He's like bedridden and sick. She comes back, and her brother meets her there, and some bad shit just starts happening. This, to me, I'm surprised. It's not quite like A24 artsy, but it is definitely not something. I'm not surprised this wasn't like a theatrical release, just because it's an indie film and low budget, obviously, but really cool. Like, if I don't even know how to explain it, but it's sort of folk horror, I guess you would say. If you're a fan of like The Witch and Hereditary and stuff, you would like this one. I don't want to spoil any of what's happening to the family, but it's some supernatural stuff, but not too supernatural. It's very haunting, I would say. So The Dark and the Wicked, if you don't want to pay for it right now, you can wait, and Shudder will have it as an exclusive, I think, January or February of 2021. So that'll be hitting there. And then my final one, I guess I should have saved the best for last and not the worst for last, but I saw Come Play, which is a PG-13 horror that has a kid that looks like Danny Torrance. Has Gillian Jacobs from Love and all kinds of Community. I think she was on Community. And this one is really well made. It's clear out of all of these movies, it had probably the biggest budget, and it was just sort of, I think, put out in drive-in theaters and limited theaters maybe last month, and it's already hit VOD. It's about a little autistic boy who speaks through his phone and his devices. He has like a tablet and a phone that he uses to talk, and there's a monster named Larry that manifests himself through smartphones and technology. And the creature design's sort of cool, but it's a little too CGI for my taste. It's PG-13 horror, so it's probably something more aimed towards middle schoolers and high schoolers. But it's sort of I think it's nice that there's a modern sort of gateway horror for kids. Just not my thing. There was some cool moments, but overall, this one is not my jam. I wouldn't, out of these three, recommend it, but I'm glad I checked it off the list. Not like I said, the production value is really good. It's not going to make the top of any of my lists. So,
thanks for taking one for the team in this time of cramming movies.
Yeah, trying to think of what it is. What's the company that does like Amblin?
Right, so Amblin.
Yeah, this is an Amblin horror movie, which is interesting. But that's sort of what that got me watching it, because I like Amblin and I like Gillian Jacobs, but I guess this was based on a short film called Larry that came out in 2017. Just the idea of this monster like crawling out of phones and stuff, I wasn't sold. You can only see him if you hold up your like phone camera. Like, I don't know. It didn't do it for me. It was a little too CGI, and I just didn't. I don't know.
So he's like an AR monster? Like, that's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the kids like basically has like a slumber party, and they hold up the phone, and they're all like, "It's just an app," you know. It does a lot of jump scares where like the kid's looking in selfie mode at his tablet, and then like he's doing like a face swap, and it will swap with nothing in the background, you know, and it's like, oh, there's something behind him, that type of thing. Yeah, just didn't do it for me. I don't know, just I don't recommend it.
Nice.
And that's what I watched. Wait, one more honorable mention, just because Mike, Mike, I think you need to watch this. Is called, and all of us need to watch it. It's very funny. It's not horror, but it's Auntie Donna's Big Old House of Fun on Netflix. It's a sketch comedy show.
I watched the first episode just the other day. Oh my god, I was crying. It's so funny.
I will, if you're going to keep watching, I will not spoil the coolest cameo of all time that you're going to literally shit your pants over.
Oh, nice.
It's Weird Al, isn't it? You didn't say that. You didn't confirm.
I'm not going to confirm that Weird Al plays Dracula in the 5th episode.
Nice. So now I have to.
Which is like a Halloween themed episode.
Thank goodness you didn't confirm that.
I'm not confirming or denying that Weird Al plays Dracula, but I was like, I saw that even right, like literally an hour before we recorded. I'm like, holy shit, Mike's gonna flip. So this show is incredibly dumb and funny. It's an Australian sketch comedy show with 3 guys who live in a house with a talking dishwasher. It's fantastic. It's like
does the dishwasher keep showing up in other episodes?
Yeah, and he's
cool.
And the show is it's sort of, I mean, you have to sort of watch them in order to get jokes later on. They make references, but there's only 5 episodes. They're like 20 minutes long. It's like Pee-wee. It's like an adult version of Pee-wee's Playhouse. It's so stupid and fun. I absolutely love it. Check it out. We binged all of it. It's definitely a great watch. So
very on the avant-garde, strange comedy side of things. Man, because first of all, if you're flipping through Netflix and you come to this and you read the description, you think you're clicking on like some throwback to 80s sitcom or something. The description was very misleading.
Right.
So the whole episode, I'm waiting for like the plot of this description that I read to start happening, and it doesn't. It just goes from one weirdo skit to the next. But right out of the gate with that first episode, when they're singing their song about everything's a drum.
Yeah.
And then when the pot doesn't make any noise.
Yeah. Not everything's a drum. Oh no.
Spoilers.
Oh, it's so. No, I wouldn't consider it spoilers. I consider it enticing you.
Yeah,
what the fuck is he talking about? I gotta watch this.
Yeah, it's like a 2-minute sketch out of. I mean, it's so ADD comedy. Like it's. It's right up my alley because I can. It's like if you don't like the sketch they're currently on, they're going to be on a new one in 2 minutes. It is so like quick and fast and funny, and if you do, it's good.
Mm-hmm, definitely. All right, thanks, Tad, for what we watched, and thanks for the insight about episode 5. I'm totally, we're going to watch that after we're done recording. Brandy's looking at me like, what? All right, so what do you get when you cross a position with a pole? That's right, pole position with Jason.
From now on, like your parents were, you are the secret force of pole position.
A what with a what? What's wrong with you?
A position with a pole.
Okay, so for this episode, this pole position, we got the question asked, what is your favorite movie Alien? I know, pretty exciting, right? So let's kick it off with Insane Mike. What's your favorite?
Okay, so apparently I caused confusion.
You did?
On Slack about that. But well, we didn't say which one we were doing, so that's what I should have clarified when I gave my answer to which question we were going to do. Anyway, mine, and I know it's not going to get the votes, but I don't care because it is my favorite movie Alien of all time, and that's The Deadly Spawn. That for such a low budget movie, the monsters in that movie are incredible. I love the design, these like giant penises with teeth everywhere. And the little slug babies slithering around. And these little slugs slithering around in like water across carpet and everything. long before Night of the Creeps and Slither ever did little slug creatures. And this movie did it on a tiny, tiny budget. And the effects are extremely seamless. So, and I just love the design of those monsters. Anyway, so that's my answer to the Deadly Spawn.
It's a wonderful movie, and can't stop pimping it and letting people know about it because they need to see it.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll go next, and instantly, it's my first choice every time. It's the one I thought of right away. I have to go with one of the few perfect movies in the world, The Thing. Like, that's one of the scariest aliens I could possibly think of. And
Yeah, I mean, that's probably has to be the winner. It's just like,
we can just go ahead and declare it now. All right,
all
cool.
encompassing. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's the scariest thing. It could just replicate everything. It's hard to beat.
It could be all of your monsters.
Yeah.
Or aliens. That's right.
Yeah.
Good. Well, what's yours, Ted?
This is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going with the killer clowns from outer space. They're from outer space, so killer clowns.
They're aliens, yeah.
Pick.
Yeah,
Great
and I've been reading all day today that the Chiodos have been in talks with Netflix for a sequel.
Oh my gosh, it's been so long.
Well, their new special Alien Xmas just hit Netflix last week, so please watch it and let Netflix know that you want a Killer Clown sequel.
Wait, what? What's that? Aliens Christmas?
Alien Xmas. The Chiodo brothers wrote a children's book, and they created a Netflix special out of it. It's a stop motion alien Christmas movie.
Mike, come on.
I did not know about this.
Yeah, it just hit Netflix last week, like Thursday or Friday, I think.
Oh, I'm on it because, again, just design-wise, I love everything the Chiodo brothers do as far as their effects work goes. You know, they created the Critters, you know, Killer Clowns in Outer Space, obviously. And so I'm always, especially if they have their hands all the way into a project on something that's theirs, I'm totally...
The puppet pun joke, right?
Yeah, yeah. I totally got to check it out. And they've been known to do some great stop motion animation too, like the alien at the end of UHF. That was the Chiodo brothers, and Large Marge from Pee Wee's Big Adventure was Chiodo brothers.
Yep, and Ernest Scared Stupid, all the monsters.
Yep, the troll monster.
You know, Team America World Police, all the puppetry.
Yeah. And I think, did they get like? Okay, I know we're going on here.
We're straying.
The Brothers podcast. Yeah.
I think they even got an Academy Award nomination for the mouse
Stuart Little
diorama. No, the mouse dioramas they did with in that
I was kidding.
Dinner for Schmucks.
Dinner with Schmucks. I think they got an Oscar nod for that.
That's awesome.
All right, and Andy, what's your favorite movie, Alien?
I have to go with The Predator, and personally, I know this is a bold statement. That is I know this covers a lot of ground, but it is my favorite movie that came out in 1987, and it does beat Lost Boys, it does beat Evil Dead 2, it does beat Hellraiser, it does beat RoboCop.
Yeah, because it has all the greasy, muscular dudes that you love.
It's something that you'll never have, Tad.
Exactly.
All right, and then so Twitter only lets us put up 4 choices, but Mike, Mike Smail, if you had to pick what your favorite movie Alien was, what would you pick?
I think I would probably go with the Martians from Mars Attacks.
Ack.
Yes.
That's an excellent choice.
It is. No matter what you think of the movie, the Martians themselves are freaking cool. I love that movie, but I always feel like I'm in the minority.
I like it.
All right, so everyone out there listening, you get your butts over to Twitter at AotKP. The poll will be up as soon as this episode comes out later that day, and get your vote in.
I'm voting for yours.
Who you think got it right? Probably me. All right. Hey, and that's poll position.
Okay, so without any further ado, we should probably get into the movies that we're going to talk about. First, I want to ask our resident space expert, Mike, what is the difference between comets and asteroids?
Sure. So the difference between comets and asteroids, it's really kind of twofold. It's two things. One is their composition, what they're made of, and the other is where we find them in our solar system. So let's start with asteroids. Asteroids are your prototypical big space rocks. They're almost entirely made of rock. Some trace other minerals and some metals you might find inside asteroids as well. But they're basically big hunks of rock, thousands of feet, miles, even hundreds of miles across. The largest asteroid we know of is a little bit smaller in the state of Texas. And the asteroids can almost entirely be found in an area known as the asteroid belt. And the asteroid belt is the area in our solar system in between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. So asteroids have mostly circular orbits around the sun, and they can mostly be found in between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. Not exclusively, but mostly. Comets, on the other hand, much more interesting. As Futurama's Captain Zap Brannigan once pointed out, comets are the icebergs of the sky. They're mostly made of ice, with some other elements as well. You'll find some rock and some dust. You'll find some other trace elements like ammonia and methane. You'll also find organic compounds, a variety of different kinds of organic compounds. You can basically think of that as just something containing carbon. That's an organic compound. And comets travel in very, very elliptical orbits that take them from the very, very depths of our solar system, way out beyond Neptune and the planets that we know, and it brings them in very, very close to the sun. They swing around the sun, and then they head back off into the depths of space. Now, you might be thinking, if you have this big ice ball and you get it close to a heat source, in this case our sun, it's going to melt, right? Well, comets actually do something that's even a little bit more interesting. In space, it goes through a process called sublimation. And what that means is, well, normally, here on the Earth, if you have an ice cube and you add heat, it melts and it turns into a liquid. But in space, in the case of comets, it skips a phase. It goes directly from solid into a gas. That's what sublimation is. And that gas forms a bit of a halo or like an atmosphere around the core of the comet. And then it also gets blown away from the comet, and it forms that big, beautiful tail. If you've ever looked at a picture of a comet, you always see that kind of big, long, hazy tail streaming away from it. So that's formed, and it's only formed and only visible when the comet is close to the sun. Once the comet gets far enough away from the sun that it starts to get colder and colder, the tail gets smaller and smaller, and then eventually, in the most distant parts of their orbit, comets are just those sort of dark, dirty snowballs, those hunks of ice and snow way out in the depths of our solar system.
Cool, thank you. And that
Mike, good job on the question and answer.
I think he's answered that question before.
Yeah.
And also apparently comets can cause trucks to come alive and
Sure.
weird colors to appear and cause
Carry aliens.
Yeah. Maybe we take those movie by movie.
Okay, Tad, what's our first movie we're going to talk about?
Our first movie is Color Out of Space.
Look at this.
All those years in the big city, we finally got out. We're living the dream.
Maybe it is a dream.
Then everything just blew up. Big flash, like a pink light. Or actually, I don't even know what color it was. It wasn't like any color I'd ever seen before.
Looks like a meteorite. You think it's radioactive? I mean, it's from space, right? Meteorites are generally no more dangerous than ordinary rocks.
How can something that big just disappear? Did you plant those?
No.
Ward, you come here for a sec.
Oh, God.
What are you doing? Shh. It's talking to me. Who's talking to you? A man in the well.
It's in the static, it's in the moisture. It's in here, it's out there. And what's out there is in here now.
Everything's under control.
Why are you so in denial? That ding from the meteorite changes everything around it.
believe me now?
I don't know what I believe anymore. Everything's gonna be A-okay.
Oh yeah, The Color Out of Space, released just this year with the return of Richard Stanley as a director, starring Nicolas Cage in his best sort of role as a true Nicolas Cage. He doesn't go complete Nicolas Cage, but he has his moments. Based on a story by H.P. Lovecraft. It's a perfect recipe of a movie. After a meteorite lands in their front yard, Nathan Gardner and his family find themselves battling an extraterrestrial organism as it infects their minds and bodies and turns their lives into a living nightmare. Nick Cage, alpacas, meteorites, bright rad colors. It's a woman chopping off her fucking fingers. I love this movie. It was one of the last ones I got to see in theaters. I saw it film scene before shit hit the fan. I love this movie, man. Like, what else can I say? This one's a blast. What'd you guys think? I'm sure. Whose first time was this seeing this?
Me,
Jason.
Mine too.
I bought the DVD Blu-ray when it first came out. I saw this a little while back, and I really, really enjoyed it. People talked about how great Annihilation was. I think this is 10 times better than Annihilation. In terms of, I mean, it's kind of like the tone is similar in what happens. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like this was, like I said, the perfect ingredients. Nick Cage is a great actor. He just has to be put in the right projects with good writing to show off his skills. And having Richard Stanley adapting an H.P. Lovecraft story with him as a lead, to me, it hit like on every level. Personally, I thought it was just great.
I literally just watched it last night, and it fucking blew my mind whole. It was so fucking awesome. Richard Stanley is back. I mean, I'll admit I was a little worried. I'm a little worried because, his story, and he'd been away, and
we see what happens when like when John Carpenter came back, The Ward, not so much.
And Richard's kind of just gone a little crazy, not in a bad way, he just I don't know. So I was worried, but my gosh, this movie I loved it. It's just right out of the gate. The cinematography is some of the most beautiful I've seen in a long time. Before it even gets to the color stuff, the cast was awesome. I loved that Lavinia. She just, she steered the whole movie so well, and you just, gosh dang.
Got Tommy Chong in there.
Tommy Chong was awesome. I've never said that sentence before. But he was one of my favorite parts of the movie. He's just such, I mean, the role of Ezra as some squatter out in the middle of nowhere that has lost his mind. Maybe he represents Richard Stanley's crazier half, but
what's he say all the time? You want a cup of Joe?
But
cup of Java.
Java.
Cup of Java. But man, when they go back out there at the end, it is fucking terrifying. The way he looks and his voice it's the perfect voice to be playing back on the reel to reel, and it's scary as hell.
His corpse, I guess you want to call it, is so still, and you're just as a fan, you are just waiting for that thing to lurch forward, and nothing ever happens. But that's the beauty of it. It didn't need to. You were just so freaked out, that it's gonna move, and it never needed to, and it paid off perfectly.
You don't know what the hell is going to happen next in this. It's just from left field.
I will say, like, one of the scariest things for me is how we're all gushing on it, and then Mike Smail's going to come in and crush our dreams.
Oh, he is. He's ruined it. Dang
No,
it.
I was going to say I actually loved the pacing in this movie because it took a while. Like from the get go, you're like, okay, it's a weird scenario. They're living in a house in the middle of nowhere. Something's going to happen, but it took a good long while for something like seriously sketchy. Because you're watching through it and like there's the accident where the mom cuts her fingers off, but up until that point, there really
Right.
other like obviously like the meteor landed in their front yard, right? But there hadn't been anything, and even that was just
It
kind of
was
like
still a normal movie.
yeah, it was,
Up
and even
until-
that was like, oh, she the way she reacted, or actually the way she didn't react to that. You're still like, okay, well, let's see what else plays out. Let's it was a slow burn, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's patient. Like it was like, just come along with me. We'll get there. Just we want to make sure we set things up right, so we care when things happen to this family.
Exactly. That's one thing I wanted to touch on is that the character development was really, really good. I mean, this family is a little eccentric, but
A little bit.
they made you care about what happened, to these people because they were good people, and the movie it's kind of really heartbreaking as to what happens to them.
Big time.
Especially I mean the mom and the son.
Jesus Christ! Yeah.
Holy cow. And then of course, when the mom attacks Lavinia up in the attic, just just Lavinia. And I do want to say, what some of my favorite stuff is, of course, I love, when we get to see the Raging Cajun. Him trying to start the car, but mainly, particularly his cycling of emotions, because he's like, I got the impression that he was like channeling his dad, the way his dad used to talk to him, and now he's talking that way to his kids.
Yeah,
and
but also like a kid.
Yeah, and but the thing is, he's freaking out. He's slam dunking those tomatoes in there, and he's freaking out. And then and then at the end, and she says, "Just fix the dish," and he circles right back to his normal self. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, honey. And it's like, what the hell? He's just like, 1 minute he's ape shit, and then he just snaps back into reality, and it's yeah, and it's such a pretty movie. It's beautiful to watch, and just one thing I want to say about Richard Stanley, of course, I think a lot of our listeners know that he was going to direct The Island of Dr. Moreau, and I think he was like the perfect person to do like a Lovecraftian story, because I think he has you can tell his passion comes through in these stories that he probably used to just devour when he was a kid, the Lovecraft and who wrote Moreau. I know it's a famous author, but I can't place it right now. But you get an idea. You get the impression that he really has a passion for these old stories, and he was. I don't really know anybody else that probably could have pulled it off quite as well as he could have. He did. Excuse me.
He was the right amount of crazy town. To get where this movie needed to go. Be the different thing that it is.
I feel like Richard Stanley is a huge H.P. Lovecraft, but sees H.P. Lovecraft on a different level than most of the rest of us do.
It's like him and Stuart Gordon,
Yeah, well, yeah. But even, a way different sensibility than Stuart Gordon, that's for sure.
I was interested. I will say I am not a historian on H.P. Lovecraft. I can't say I have a huge knowledge on it. So I asked my friend Trevor, who's been on the show, who came to Iowa City with me and watched it, what he thought, because he is a big time reader. He's also a writer who is heavily influenced by H.P. Lovecraft and is a huge fan. And he was like, "This has to be my favorite adaptation. This was just fucking ruled. Wow. Like, what a cool take on it. He just gets it." And I'm like, right on. He said the tone was just like right on for him, in his opinion.
I've heard that from a lot of people.
Well, yeah, because the whole time I'm watching it, I'm sitting there thinking, I've seen this plot before. I've seen this plot before. And then it occurred to me that like, oh, this is exactly what happens in The Curse, which we watched for the show a couple years ago, I think. So I jumped on IMDb, and Curse is based on the same H.P. Lovecraft story, only this is definitely way better than The Curse.
I love the opening. You're like, is this a set in olden times? Having not really seen the movie, it's like a fun little trick because this girl's out doing some
witchcraft type thing,
witchcrafty thing, and the whole like the whole beginning of the movie feels different than most beginnings because there's this like the music they use on her when she's on her way back to the house, which takes forever, and out to the barn. Like there's just this really interesting music that's not normal in this part of the beginning of the movie, and it just lasts forever, and it gives it such a cool feeling. The music in general of this film is, I mean, yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I will throw out because I know Tad's obviously looking for me to like dunk on something here, right? From a science perspective. So
we'll get to the science part.
Let's talk about the meteor that landed, right? So this rock from space, and a meteor is actually significantly smaller than an asteroid or a comet. Most meteors are, maybe on the extreme large end, maybe like 2 or 3 feet across, which is about what we saw with this particular meteor. With this particular meteor, meteors do a weird naming thing. When these bits of rock and space dust are in space, they're called meteoroids. And then when they ionize, when they travel through the Earth's atmosphere, they heat up, they ionize the air around them, and that leaves the streak that you can see in the night sky, the shooting star. And when that happens, they're called meteors. And then when they land on the ground, they're called meteorites for some weird reason. Same rock, 3 names. So it lands in their yard. It kicks up kind of a crater. The crater was reasonable. The rock probably would have sunk a little further in. Again, depending on the exact underground geology of that New England location where they are. And then so obviously the color plays a big role in this movie. That sort of like pinkish purple shade that sort of permeates the entire film. And obviously the meteor on the ground has kind of a charred black crust, which again is accurate. As meteors burn in, they have what's called a fusion crust, just because of the incredible heat of traveling through the Earth's atmosphere. They get that like charred blackened exterior. And of course, in this movie, they add the kind of like pink purple like tiger stripes kind of over top of it. Obviously, to fit in with the theme, you obviously would not find that on an actual meteor. But I will say there was a kind of a throwaway line about like I think it was Nicolas Cage who was like, "Oh, are they valuable?" Like when it first hit, and like, yeah, actually, like meteorites can go from anywhere from like a couple $100 to a couple $1,000 a pound. So, if he had been like really hard up for cash, he should have just like thrown the thing in the trunk of his car and, driven to find somebody to get it appraised. And, but then that would have made the movie totally different. So.
But what's funny is if his character would have sold the meteorite, Nick Cage, the actor, would have bought it, and his manager would have been like, damn it, now you have to take another shitty role because you keep buying things like
shit like meteorites.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of funny.
I also loved the mayor was only in like 2 or 3 scenes, but the first time like the mayor and the sheriff show up to come look at this meteor impact. And this is again like a small town BFE, like mid-Atlantic somewhere. And the mayor's got a bodyguard with her. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was absolutely hilarious. And then when a little bit later, when the sheriffs have, I think it was the sort of animal corpse amalgamation that had come out of, they had it in the back of a truck, and they see the guy that's the hydrologist, and they're just like, "Hey, you're a scientist. Come here, take a look at this." And then the mayor did that, I think, once too. She was like, "Hey, you're a hydrologist. What do you think about this?" And I'm like, "It's a rock from space. He's not a he."
Right.
Yeah. But it was just that like, you're the scientist. You handle it.
Well, I'll admit, like, when we were talking about having an episode about Comet Horror, I'm like, well, who could we have as a guest? I thought of you right away, and I'm like, oh shit, I hope that wasn't like offensive, like getting my token smart space friend on the show. But like, I'm probably in that situation where I'd be like, hey man, like, what do you know about this? And you're like, that's nothing at all what I do. You know what I mean? Like dumb people think that smart people know everything, and I'm a dumb person, so like I just assume you're going to know about this, and I'm glad you actually do. I took a swing, and I'm glad that it worked out. But but I understand like that's real. Like I mean, I won't even get. I'm not going to get political into it, but there's people who just think that if you're in a position like you have to know everything, right? Like you know about water, so you probably know about rocks and dead animals and everything in nature, right? I mean, you're smart.
I also absolutely loved the I forget his character's name, Alex, or Tommy Chong's character, his cat's name. The wordplay with that throughout the movie was just fantastic.
Oh yeah, he's talking about the pussy and
the cat named G-Spot. It's like,
yes,
you'll never find it. It's not going to look like how you think it will.
Did you guys, towards the end of the movie, what I thought was like a really nice touch is, he's looking over this valley where I can only assume where they flooded, where the house and everything probably was, and he says, I hope the water's deep enough, but I will never drink it. Did you notice that as a hydrologist, he's smoking a cigarette and he threw the cigarette into the water? It's just like it's like everything in this valley of water is just like it's beyond saving. He's like, if he's a scientist, and he wants to preserve, water and keep it clean, the last thing he's going to do is like flick a cigarette into it. And I just thought, it's like I just thought that was a nice touch. He's just like, it doesn't even matter. This is beyond saving.
Yeah, you're fucked.
So we just did a bonus episode about our horror movie triggers that you can all go listen to at jointheattackers.com. But Insane Mike, tell me, I mean, we got to talk about this scene. I can't believe they did that with the little kid.
I know.
And the mom. It was the most hard thing to watch.
It was tough, especially those moments on the couch when you see the kid, and towards the end of those
were harder. Yeah.
For me, it was towards the end of that scene, or maybe it went more when they were in the attic. I don't remember. But when he just starts like wailing and screaming and crying, like that is when it got really tough. Like, when you see the kid's melted face fused on the back of this mother, well, it's makeup, but those cries, even though they were still like modulated, they were heartbreaking. And I want to give it's great that you bring that up, and ask me about that, because my two key takeaways from this movie for me was never have I seen a monster or creature in a movie that I found both terrifying and heartbreaking at the same time as the mommy kid mutant monster in the attic. Again, because like the whole time my heart's breaking for what they're going through, and all I'm thinking is like, you freaking idiots! I don't care if you have to carry her out of the woods. Why are you taking them to get them some help? It seems so like.
What it made me think about? Brundlefly.
Oh, absolutely. Very much. Very much. Again, I guess terrifying and sympathetic. But
right.
But that moment, but for me, as far as terrifying goes, that moment when she leaps off the bed and is like spider crawling towards the girl, it's a really cool aerial shot of. I mean, it's only a few seconds long, but it is an amazing few seconds of that that hybrid creature crawling towards the daughter and attacking the daughter. So cool.
I was expecting that creature to be much faster. Like it got up and then it just kind of like waddled across the room over to it. And it was you kind of expecting like, no, this thing's just going to like pounce from the other side of the room. And, but yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I think it was effective in the way it moved. I felt that it felt kind of creepy instead of more of like a jump shock scare. It was creepy in its movement, but also I felt like it was more realistic. It's the whole zombie debate, right? Like, fast moving zombies versus slow moving zombies. I'm always more of a slow moving zombie guy because in reality,
it's deteriorating flesh, right?
Yeah, they're not going to move fast. And on the other side of that too, though, it didn't move like a slow moving zombie where actors think they have to like be super jerky in their movement because they're a slow moving zombie and their bodies don't work right. It felt physically it felt physically natural with the shape of that creature and the way it moved, and I appreciated that as well. But my other key takeaway from this movie is I have never seen a horror movie that made pink creepy. Like, the colors in this movie are just gorgeous, beautiful. Oh my god, it's a beautiful looking movie.
Absolutely.
But as more and more like those pink flowers or plants or whatever those are appearing all over the place, or when there's like shooting purple and pink light, from the well or from the meteor hole or from the barn or whatever, it was like gorgeous and creepy at the same time. It's like it really created a great sense of dread and terror in this movie, and it's pink.
Yeah, I mean, how hard do you think Dario Argento gets when he watches this?
Oh God, yeah.
For the digital effects artist, wet dreams.
I was creeped out by the mutated tomatoes too, for some odd reason, just by the way that they looked. And did you guys catch all the other Lovecraft references in this film?
No, tell us because I'm dumb.
Well, you're not dumb. It's just
no, I'm dumb. It's okay.
Well, there was she had the Necronomicon. That's technically not an Evil Dead reference. I mean, the Necronomicon is mentioned, and the T-shirt that the hydrologist was wearing. He's from Miskatonic University, which is from Lovecraft, and it's also Herbert West's alma mater. So,
oh, sweet.
Yeah, so check out the hydrologist. I can't say that. Hydrologist.
The water dude.
Yeah, the H2O man, the water boy.
The water boy.
He's got a wooden spoon. Yeah. But yeah, he's got a Miskatonic T-shirt on underneath his overshirt. So
this movie would have been even better if Adam Sandler played that character and he did it as the water boy.
I never heard the word hydrologist until this movie, but everyone in the movie clearly had all heard it before.
And knows, what he is.
But apparently they think he knows about space rocks and stuff. So
he's just the science guy that hangs out in the tent. Like, that's,
Yeah. So yeah. Great movie. I, never been the biggest fan of this particular Lovecraft story, but Richard Stanley does a really good job with it. And I've been kind of nervous going into it because as I think back of Richard Stanley's career, I think to myself, am I glorifying this guy because of Lost Souls? Because I did not like Dust Devil.
Oh, Dust Devil.
Hardware.
Yeah, and I remember when we did Hardware for the podcast, I could swear I remember not liking it then. But as the movie has sat with me for the years, and maybe, again, I'm glorifying it as well, but I feel like I like Hardware. I need to go back and rewatch it. But that's his career, so...
But yeah,
like,
I always thought
maybe
that
like
too.
a half of a good movie. So I'm like, do I really like this guy? We'll find out.
Turns out, I do.
He's still got a lot more to prove, I think. But
I also really appreciated the ending of him, his little spoken outro, because like until then I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, talk about feeling dumb. I was like, what? I mean, I get it. Shit just kind of went crazy and exploded, but but what? And then so I appreciated they helped me out with his little speech at the end. I appreciate it.
I had the same thing. It was like the house blew up or whatever, and I'm like, wait, so the thing's just gone now? Like that?
Right.
What? But yeah, it worked.
I think the other character that was heartbreaking for me when he went was the older son in the well. That one kind of got to me too, guys. I feel like he was the most innocent character in the whole movie. I mean, he was a pothead or whatever, but he just felt so like clueless and outcast through the whole movie, and just had this like
you just want to help his dog,
doe-eyed look on his face, and he couldn't do anything right. Like he would go take care of the alpacas,
and he left them out.
And then when the daughter goes outside, he's like, "You were supposed to take care of the alpacas," and they're out in the yard. And he's like, "I did." So he does it again, and then when the dad comes home, the alpacas are out, and he's like, "You were supposed to put the alpacas." Like, I did. He's like getting shit from everybody.
Just get the fuck out of my face. I'll do you a favor. I'll get the fuck out of yours.
Crazy Nick Cage.
Oh yeah. Okay, so moving on. Andy, what's our next movie?
Our next movie is from 1988. It is a Chuck Russell and Frank Darabont jam. It is The Blob.
If it had a mind, you could reason with it. If it had a body, you could shoot it. If it had a heart, you could kill it. Now, man is no longer the supreme being on this planet.
The organism is growing at a geometric rate. By all accounts, it's at least 1,000 times its original mass.
Nobody believes me about what happened tonight.
What did happen?
You were there, you saw.
Plasmic life form that hunts its prey. Predator. I want that organism alive.
I think you ticked it off.
Blob. Terror has no shape.
All right, as I said before, this is it was directed by Chuck Russell and co-written with Frank Darabont. You might know those names because I believe that was part of the first. Darabont was like the first season of Walking Dead, and he also helped write and help direct Nightmare 3 with Chuck Russell. Am I right?
Yep. Yeah.
That's
definitely one of the writers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's they've got some pedigree here. Anyway, as far as descriptions goes, we have a girl by the name of Meg Penny, played by Shawnee Smith, who Insane Mike Shawnee carries Smith. A big torch for.
Yeah.
All right, and she's out on her first date with this football player named Paul Taylor. More on him later. And it doesn't go very well because they run into a guy by the name of, Brian Flagg, who's kind of like your tip. He kind of strikes you as like a typical 50s biker greaser kind of type, but he's the misunderstood rebel in this. And anyway, he's when he goes out to fix his bike because it crapped out on him before, out by this bridge. And during this time, a meteorite or comet, they were explained to me earlier, but I spaced off. But anyway, it's got a yeah, and you think you say you're dumb, Tad. Anyway, this hobo, this transient, he goes out to investigate, and he gets a blob-like substance on his hand, and it's corrosive as shit, and starts, eating away his hand. In the midst of this, Brian goes out to, chase him, but he runs him out in front of Meg and her date's car. He hits him with the car, so they all pile up in there, and they go to the doctor's office. While they're at the doctor's office, this blob just eats half this damn guy, and it turns out whatever it eats, it becomes bigger and bigger. And as it gets bigger and bigger, the plot thickens, and it turns out that this blob is actually a biological weapon made by the government, and they're trying to keep dibs on this thing. So they have to stop this thing from eating everything in sight, and that's pretty much your plot, folks. But I do want to point out there was a lot of familiar faces to me in this, which kind of surprised me. You actually have Bill Moseley playing a soldier in one of the hazmat suits. You have... I actually saw in the credits a soldier outside the hall is played by Richard Crenna Jr., which was Sergeant Trotman's kid, I'm assuming, from Rambo. You have, let's see, who else? The guy who played George, who the actor's name who escapes me, he gets sucked down a sink. He was actually the guy that was pushing drugs to the kids in Nightmare 3. You also have Erica Leniak, who played Vicky, whose face caves in this. She was in Bordello of Blood, and she was also in Under Siege with Steven Seagal, who she had to kiss in that, and should have got hazard pay for that shit. But yeah, this movie is a lot of fun. I'll step in when I get the chance, but also. Before I give you guys the reins, it was also cool to see Jack Nance, aka Eraserhead, as the first doctor we see in the hospital. So, yes, and also Pete Martell from Twin Peaks. I said that one for Tad. Anyway, go.
Well, you missed a couple other actors I want to point out. There's Paul Mccrane, played the deputy. Who is also in RoboCop. He's the one that gets melted by the toxic waste.
That's
the
right.
guy from the Beatles?
No.
Mccrane? McCartney?
McCartney.
And I definitely want to mention Jeffrey DeMunn. I don't think you mentioned him, did you? He plays the sheriff, and I want to mention him because he shows up in a lot of Frank Darabont stuff. He was in The Mist. He was in The Walking Dead, everybody's favorite guy from the first couple seasons that I'm blanking on. Somebody help me.
Dale.
Oh, the guy who drove the Winnebago, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, now I recognize him.
And then for me, one that always caught my attention back the first time I ever saw this is Del Close, played the Reverend. Del Close is kind of one of those like Jedi masters of improv. He has trained a lot of famous comedians in the art of improvisation, and that's his big claim to fame. But for me, around this time when the movie came out, there was a DC Comics called Wasteland that was this weird anthology comic. Sometimes horror, sometimes comedy, sometimes self-exploratory stuff. And Del Close was a writer for this comic, which was at the time really weird because he's not that kind of guy. And he wrote some of my favorite stuff in Wasteland, including a little self-exploratory story about himself. And part of that was his time spent working on the movie The Blob. And that really caught my attention because there's these little art bubbles in the comic of him in the Reverend outfit and the melted face, and it took me a while to put the two and two together after I saw The Blob. But yeah, those are the ones I wanted to to mention.
I do have another one, even though her cameo is very, very brief. The blonde in Garden Tool Massacre, which was the movie that I believe Kevin and Eddie were watching. That is Julie. Hopefully, I can say her last name right. McCullough. And she was Kurt Cameron's girlfriend on Growing Pains, but apparently, little self-righteous Kurt didn't like what this woman, didn't like a woman making her own decisions about her own fucking body, and she posed for Playboy. Yeah. And since he's a fucking Jesus freak, okay, not ragging on anybody, but okay, I am, but anyway, yeah, pretty much got her fired. So.
Yeah. She did that Playboy spread and got fired off of Growing Pains. Oh, one last and the most important actor in this whole movie, and that is Kevin Dillon's mullet.
Hair extensions, yeah, not real.
God, I hope not.
But what you two are saying, this is a perfect 6 Degrees movie that helps you get places, Mike.
6 Degrees to Kevin Dillon's mullet. I've always been a fan of this movie. I love this movie. I love all the Blob movies. The original with Steve McQueen, even that weird, shitty one in the 70s, Beware of the Blob, directed by Larry Hagman.
Like J.R. Ewing, Larry Hagman?
Yeah. On the DVD box it says
Jesus.
The film shot by J.R.
Oh God!
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad, but I still love it because I think just the concept alone of this particular alien monster is I find really cool. Just this gelatinous creature that devours you, and this one still to this day has, there's some, especially some of the optical effects don't quite hold up. And they never do, because you can always tell an optical effect because. If things feel matted and lighting doesn't always match from shot to shot, stuff like that. But some of those practical blob effects to this day, I'm still like, how did they do that? Still beautiful and seamless effects, and just some of those shots of people getting devoured by this blob, being totally succumbed by the blob. Like when the boyfriend gets it and she's reaching out to Shawnee Smith and she's
that's
pulling,
like the classic image of that's what you think of. You see that image when you hear about this movie of that guy just reaching his hand out.
Shouting back to the bonus episode again, and Tad brought up about drowning. I think of that when I watch those shots of, like, say, the boyfriend getting killed by the blob. It's not only he can't breathe and is drowning inside the blob, but now he's also being corroded and digested by this creature at the same time. So add insult to injury there.
And some of the gags that we saw with, like, when Shawnee Smith pushes that girl up off the theater floor and it just rips just completely. She's like pasted to the floor and it just rips like part of her flesh off. One of the main things that I really wanted to emphasize in this movie is that all the small characters, when they died, they made this feel like, granted, it is a small town, but you cared about when the people died. For as little as screen time as that they had, like, you cared when the cop died. Like when the sheriff died, even though you didn't see him all that much, you cared when the main waitress died.
But that's such an effective scene. Yes, you don't see the sheriff die, but it's such a punch in the gut
in the phone booth.
Yeah, when like the waitress is calling for help from the sheriff, and it turns out, oh no, the sheriff already got it.
You already got chewed. And the one that really got me, the one that really surprised me was when poor little Eddie got it in the sewer. You'd think that the kid was going to make it out. Granted, he was an ornery little shit, but he was still a pretty good kid. But you were hoping he was going to make it out. But no, man, he's done.
He was like the bad influence friend, right? So that was like,
yeah,
okay to get rid of him.
Yep, a moral story. Yeah, don't be the asshole.
Even if you're a 10-year-old asshole.
Well, you guys realize this is a first time watch for me.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's right. Yes,
Cool.
I'm so
Awesome.
I'm so excited for you. Yes, I can't wait to hear.
Yeah, it was a blast. I mean, it's tough for me because I try to keep my expectations in check. This has been hyped to me for a long time. Just a lot of different film directors talk about how great this is. A lot of obviously horror fans, and I try to keep my expectations in check, and I really did enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. The effects are freaking awesome. It's just another one of those 80s horror movies that's a blast. Like I want to definitely check out the Scream Factory edition and find out more about it and the history. But there was a lot of stuff that took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting, like you said, the boyfriend at the beginning at the hospital when they take the dude in. Like I didn't expect him to go so quick. Like they sort of set him up for you to like him, and then he's gone really fast. That took me by surprise.
He was the Janet Leigh of the Blob.
Right. Like I really liked him, and he was a good guy, and he, he actually seemed to care about the person, the dude they found, and brought him in and was really concerned. And then he gets it right away, and it's like, well, shit, man, what now?
I too have always loved this movie. It's been amazing and awesome, and always loved it. It's probably the movie that made me want to get a motorcycle. But it all comes down to me for Tony Gardner's effects. They're just brilliant and groundbreaking, and it's just what makes the movie for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Again, they're just so seamless.
I think.
Go ahead.
My bad. I was just gonna say, I think that this movie could easily be remade and made to look like really, really good. But I was questioning myself. It's like, would today's audience want to see it? Would they shun it? Because it's a blob. I mean, but and then I start to think to myself, I mean, Jesus Christ, there's 4 Sharknadoes, I mean, this would probably, probably somebody would want, I mean, I'd go see it.
You guys know who was attached to do a new Blob, right?
Rob Zombie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
White trash blob. It would be like hairy and have teeth and like 6 vaginas, and it would smoke.
Yeah.
and we have a full-on beard.
It would be it would be eating Rugsville, God knows what it would catch, if it started eating the residents of that place, but
I could have sworn, though, I had read or had heard at one time during its development with Rob Zombie that the movie was doing the remake of The Blob without having The Blob in it.
Boo.
I know. What would that even mean? Like, and again, it's Rob Zombie, so who knows, where that quote comes from at the time of how he was feeling. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like The Blob could, you could it's always been a bummer to me that there has not been more Blob movies. And this movie obviously sets up the possibility for a sequel, but it just didn't do the box office that they wanted in order to do a sequel, which is a bummer. I would love to see where that would go with the crazy priest at the end. But, it's a simplistic yet really effective monster, I feel like. And I mean, I think there's a place in this world for it, an audience for it. I mean, one of the most popular monsters in like Dungeons and Dragons are gelatinous cubes, even so much so that they've made a pop figure of the gelatinous cube. So there's got to be some commercial appeal to the Blob still.
Cubes or pubes?
Yes.
I'm really excited to hear what the space and stuff guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was a lot, like, even holding off on the space and stuff. One of the things one of you guys mentioned earlier was that I really thought was a great practical effect was the girl like melting into the movie theater floor during that scene. Yeah. It just looked so good. And like, yeah, there were some like chroma key shots and stuff that you could observe, but that one was one that was just like really, really enjoyed, really nicely done. And Flag's character is sort of like the the nod to Steve McQueen enjoyed. The part where he's like he nails the motorcycle jump and then turns around and like flicks off the guys chasing him. He's like,
Yeah.
Fuck you. And I think actually my favorite part with Flag was early on in the diner, and he totally does the like AC Slater, William Riker, where he like back of the chair and like sits down. Like, again, nobody actually does that, but okay, and yeah, the one other thing that just kind of made me laugh was when the priest comes back into town and he sees like the blob disappear into the sewer. And then he sees the diner's like been, bombed out and there's broken windows. And he goes, and he's like, looking in, calling for people, seeing if there's anybody there. And then finally he gets into the back and there's like, a cat, drinking milk off the floor or something. And he just looks at it and gets this like smile on his face. Like, oh, it was just the cat. It was just this. What are you? No, obviously there's a little more going on. But yeah, it was interesting because watching the I had seen this once before, but it'd been at least 20 years. Like it was a long time ago. And so I remember obviously like watching and paying attention. So like when the meteorite comes in, I kind of I watch it and I rewind it and I watched it again. And when it initially comes in, you see it and it looks kind of like a silver satellite or a spacecraft or something. And then when it cuts to like it landing on the ground and its big like impact crater, and it actually looks a lot like the meteorite it looks like a lot like the meteor from Color Out of Space. It's kind of dark and charred with some pinkish. There's some ooze to it, right? You can see the sort of the gelatinous blob creature in there, which again wouldn't actually have in a real meteor. But again, it was good. There was obviously like you could see like down a hill, it had cleared a path. There was a crater that it landed in, which was good. I did take offense to there was not offense, but like there was one line when the what was the guy's name? He was like the lead government scientist, Dr. Meadows, yeah. And he was explaining, and he said like there was a rock from space that carried a bacteria, and that's what killed the dinosaurs. And that's not what killed the dinosaurs. It was a rock from space. It was about a 5-10 mile wide rock from space that landed in the Gulf of Mexico, and it left this huge 100-mile across crater in the Yucatan Peninsula, and then under the actual Gulf, and that kicked up material into the atmosphere, and it basically just destroyed. It ended the Cretaceous period. It killed the dinosaurs. Ended the vast majority of life on the Earth, but again, that was just the rock. It didn't need any kind of alien bacteria to
the rock does enough
do any of that. Yeah, not that rock, but the a rock.
Going to school, damn. The one thing that I do take offense to this, and then I will shut up about this movie, is the trunk of this idiot's car that's going on a date with that Vicky gal, Erica Leniak. Apparently this guy has never had a flat tire because he carries around all that bullshit in the trunk of his car. With like, grenadine and Hawaiian punch and all the, class rings and fucking basketball hoops. I'm just like, what a dipshit. No wonder this guy's not getting laid.
I gotta admit, like when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to be old enough to have my own car, so I would do that to my trunk.
And be stranded when your tire goes flat.
Yeah, but I would have a good time. While I waited for AAA. Jason, were you with me that time for the Iowa Digital Filmmakers Guild where I did that seminar on horror movie screenwriting? Do you remember that?
Probably.
And one of the things for that event is that we had lunch downtown Des Moines with I think he was one of the writers of the original Blob, because I guess he lived in Des Moines at the time, or I don't know if he still does or not, but I can't remember the guy's name. Do you remember that at all?
On that, no.
Okay.
Must have made a huge impact.
Right.
It's been so long ago, and actually the lunch was a little lame because apparently I think it was like the Christian Church was a producer, was backing the original Blob, so his lecture during lunch about the Blob kind of turned a little preachy, a little religious preachy. So yeah, wasn't as
it was the exact
it would be.
is the exact opposite of what Mike taught us. He's like, dinosaurs didn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I saw something about that when I was looking it up online. That apparently, yeah, the original Blob was, I don't know, partially funded or kind of pushed by some Christian groups, which was interesting.
That's crazy.
Like Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Yeah, I think if I remember it, I think it was kind of the same situation where they wanted to make a commercial film, so then they can turn around and back some religious films. But I don't know if that's true or not, or if I'm just remembering Ed Wood at this point.
Well, you know that Christian groups definitely would have been behind Rob Zombie's The Blob.
Yep.
One of my favorite memories of this movie is weirdly before this podcast existed, Mike and I used to have this review show called Insane Mike's or
Insane Asylum
reviews with Insane Asylum, and
which you can still find on YouTube.
Yep, and he basically recapped this movie scene by scene. This maybe where it's insane, where the 1 minute top 10 list came from. You talking fast, but he recaps the entire movie of The Blob in about 6 minutes. I mean, a scene for scene, every scene at 9,000 miles an hour, one breath. It seemed like, and it was amazing. I don't know.
The part of that I remember, and I was thinking about it too. So I'm glad you brought it up. The part I remember is when I'm reenacting Shawnee Smith's scene at the end with the machine gun yelling at the Blob. You can do better than that. Come on.
Maybe that's why the show got canceled. I'm not sure.
Oh, but Shawnee Smith, right? I mean,
she's adorable in this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
One more, building on that, it was really interesting to see there was kind of the tip off for the audience with them in the freezer about what will kill the Blob, and Shawnee Smith remembered it and came back to it later. Meanwhile, this whole government task force agency is just like going to shoot at the thing, right? That's their they're all running around with guns, and that's their solution is just to shoot the Blob, and it's like, are they really experts on this? Shouldn't they maybe have known a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I'm glad that the town got their snow season back, but I'm pretty sure their sewage system is fucked. They're throwing a thermal charge down in there.
It was also hilarious knowing that movie was filmed in southernmost South Louisiana, which is where I used to live, and then having them pass it off as this winter mountain town with ski resorts and everything. This is not this. No.
A snow machine. Let's throw in a snow machine and a couple snowmobiles. People will think it's a ski town. All right, so moving on to our last movie. Jason, what do you got for us?
Oh my gosh, guys! The next movie is so awesome. Sadly, it's like growing up, I thought it was just everyone loved this movie, but I guess it's a love or hate movie. But it's one of my favorite movies from the 80s. Maximum Overdrive.
Hi, my name is Stephen King. I've written several motion pictures, but I want to tell you about a movie called Maximum Overdrive, which is the first one I've directed. Wow.
What in the dickens is going on around here?
A lot of people have directed Stephen King novels and stories. And I finally decided if you want something done right, you ought to do it yourself.
Who was driving it? I don't know.
Curtis! It's coming after us!
It was my first picture as a director. And you know something? I sort of enjoyed it. I just wanted someone to do Stephen King right.
You want a war? You got one.
I just want to get the hell out of here.
So come and spend some time with me and my friends at the Dixie Boy. Spend some time in the dark.
Please don't let us be in the dark.
Help me.
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you. And That's a promise.
You're gonna get us in an awful lot of trouble, man.
We already in trouble.
Maximum terror.
Jesus coming and he is
Maximum King.
Maybe tomorrow will be our world again.
Dino De Laurentiis presents Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive.
After a comet causes a radiation storm on Earth, I can't wait to find out that that's possible. Machines come to life and turn against their makers. Holed up in a North Carolina truck stop, a group of survivors must fend for themselves against a mass of homicidal trucks. A diner cook, Bill Robinson, played by Emilio Estevez, emerges as the unlikely leader of the pack, attempting to find an escape plan for himself and the survivors, who include his boss, Bubba Hendershot, and a newlywed couple. Guys, I love this movie. Gosh. What's not to like?
I'm so glad you played the trailer just because I love that that trailer just summarizes how batshit stupid and awesome this movie is. They stole the music directly from Halloween 3.
I was going to say that.
It rode on the gimmick of Stephen King directing, which we see this is the reason he hasn't done it since. It's just like, I imagine that the execs watch the movie and they're like, let's just put Stephen Wright in the trailer. We're just going to sell it on that. That's what we're going to go for.
My favorite line in the trailer is when he's talking about, I directed it myself. And I kind of liked it. And I'm thinking, yeah, I bet you did like cocaine back in the 80s.
I was going to say, yeah, this is when he was heavy into the nose gold, right?
The fact that Yeardley Smith went on to have a wildly successful career as a voiceover artist after doing this movie is maybe one of the most incredibly impressive things I could possibly imagine. Because, like, I'm a pretty tolerant person, but I have never wanted to just punch a character every time they came on the screen. Quite the way I felt about her role as screeching sidekick wife in this film.
Are you dead?
Connie and Curtis. Gotta love him.
The guy who plays Curtis, I'm wondering if he improv'd a lot of his stuff. There's the scene that has always got me in this movie is the scene when him and Emilio are crawling through the sewers, right? And they're having playful banter. I mean, there's killer trucks out there, and they're having this playful banter in the sewer that, especially this last time watching, I'm like, this feels really poorly improv. Like, they probably had no dialogue for the scene, and Steven's just like, say whatever you want. Emilio kind of falls in the water a little bit, and Connor's like, how's it taste? Or the rat, and Emilio's like, hey, I'm sending a friend back to you, and Connor's like, oh, shit. And they're all like chuckling and having a good old time crawling through this sewer.
I wonder how many people have peed in this.
Yes, exactly.
Just like, who says that shit?
I really feel like they were grasping at straws to think of things to say for that scene. And I think there's a couple moments that Connor has that's just like that.
I love the fact that there's somewhere in North Carolina that there's a pop machine that's like a double-barreled like pitching machine. I've never seen another soda machine like that, like ever, on my 40 years on this earth. But awesome. I do want to say that I first saw this movie when I was like, I think I might have been, I think I was 7 years old when I first saw this, and it was I was with my Uncle George, and we rented some videos because I was staying with him at the time, and it was this was part of a double feature. I watched this. Maximum Overdrive and Over the Top. Yes, oily, sweaty men, Tad. And that's a lot of caffeine and a lot of testosterone for like an 8-year-old to handle. Yeah, and I think I woke up the next morning, my balls had dropped and I grew a mustache. But this was I have loved this movie, the first time I saw it. I mean, it's got great one-liners, just, Wanda June just going completely apeshit. We made you! And it's got El Polo Loco's Giancarlo Esposito, the guy who dies in the video game room.
Breaking Bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Hendershot is great, and yeah, just the way that guy talks just cracks me up. Yeah, as bad as this movie is, I love this damn movie.
Yeah.
The fact that the guy restored the Green Goblin front end of the truck and he takes it, on and to conventions now is just awesome. This movie was like one of my favorite Blu-ray releases one year.
Oh yeah,
that Vestron.
It's a great Blu-ray. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what can be said? I mean, just like I was kind of like in awe, just rewatching it, just seeing that truck fall from the middle of the bridge. I was just like, that's actually pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that's the thing with this movie. It's logic is out the window with this movie. Things, it breaks its own rules at every turn. It's technically not a good movie, but it is a fun ass movie. There's so many fun visuals. Yes, army truck shooting up a waitress with a machine gun that has no mechanical mechanisms attached to it from the Jeep that can shoot independently, yet they can carry around bazookas and machine guns that don't go off on their own. Doesn't make sense, but it's still cool. It's still cool to see them blow up a truck with a bazooka. Yes, the fast food restaurant drive-through window speaking independently. That's not how fast food windows work, but it's still a cool moment in the movie as well. That's just it. It's like when you get on a roller coaster and they put the bar down, but you could see like maybe it's missing a couple screws on the bars, or like the track's a little rickety. You still get on the roller coaster and still have a good time, even though it should be condemned, but you still have a good time. So that's kind of how I sum up this movie.
I was just curious, when did Walkmans get so damn pissed off at him too? Just like
that is an epiphany I had this last viewing, and I think I have one every single time I watch this movie. Because when that girl is hanging there death by her Walkman, you can hear the broadcast over the radio saying, "Avoid all electronics." And I'm thinking, you're in a radio station right now, surrounded by electronics. People are listening to this broadcast through electronics. You are defeating the whole purpose of your broadcast right now, sir.
Or the sprinklers going on and off that, are not, they're not underground sprinklers, mind you. This is like, 1986. And they would just go on and off. So those weren't like electrical or anything like that at all. So I just thought that was a little odd.
This is my first time watching this.
Oh, nice.
I have a few observations. First and foremost, I am a very big vocal hater of AC/DC in general, but this is like the best use of AC/DC ever, because this movie is so big and dumb that there are 3 chords and the screeching is like perfect for this. Like, if they've ever had a purpose, it was to make music for this dumb movie. After I watched it, I did a little bit of half-assed IMDb research, and so I have to ask Insane Mike, what are your thoughts on the rumor that George Romero ghost directed like a lot of this movie because King was out for his cocaine problems?
Holy shit, I had never heard that before.
Yeah, a lot of people, when they saw it, recognized a lot of George Romero's edits and his signature camera angles and shots, and so people jumped on it. And Stephen King never denied it, but he said that Romero was on the set for a lot of the movie to watch it get shot.
Whoa.
So it would. Now I'm gonna have to go watch it again.
Oh darn!
Oh yeah, oh darn! I know, right? But now I'm gonna have to watch it with the lens of George's lens.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I don't know what to think of that right off the top of my head. I know if George is involved, it would only probably be part time because there's still a lot of famous stories about Stephen King as a director. Most famously, the big lawsuit where the DP sued
Lost
the
an
production.
eye.
Yeah, lost an eye from what was it?
A
The
remote controlled
lawnmower?
lawnmower hitting a piece of wood.
Yeah, and
Wow.
that piece of wood going into the guy's eye. Yeah, George would never let that happen.
I'm a little curious when the kid in this movie, where did he know? How did he know where the baseline was when he slid into home? Because I'm curious. Steven might have snorted it.
Two moments of this movie that freaked me out as a kid, and I still think are really good moments amongst all the tomfoolery that goes on in this movie. One, the kid, again, another kid death. And this one affected me in a different way because I was a kid at the time watching this movie and really getting into horror, not seeing very much kid death. But that kid getting run over by a steamroller. And the other, I still think it's kind of a creepy moment when the Bible salesman is dying in the ditch, and the boy goes into the ditch, and he grabs him, and he's like, "You pull me out of here, or I'll kill you." I think that's probably the creepiest moment of the whole movie.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
When he pushed, he's getting into this whole selling the Bible spiel, and he's acting all self-righteous and high and mighty, and then the semi hits his Cadillac, and he pushes Wanda June out of the way, and he says, "Get out of my way, bitch!" And I'm like, whoa! He just completely 180s in that moment because he's so mad after. And I think when he pulled in there, he lost 4 hubcaps. When he got jerked off the road.
See, and that's the thing. How come? Is it Kurt and Connie? Is that right?
Yes.
How come when they're getting chased by vehicles and whatnot, and when they end up at the Dixie Boy, how come their car never took over? It's stuff like that. There's just so much inconsistency.
Yeah. Or the Bible salesman's Cadillac. How come that,
Exactly.
It didn't go nuts.
Exactly. There's a great episode, I don't know if you could still find it anymore, of How Did This Get Made, where they did Maximum Overdrive, and half of the episode is spent debating what is a machine and what isn't. It's so funny. But back to the Bible salesman, and back to you, Andy. I'm surprised, you're the movie quote guy pulling outrageous movie quotes out of movies. I'm surprised you don't have carpal tunnel from all the great lines in this movie, writing them down.
Oh, just let's sing. Did that thing go rabbit on you, sweet thing? But he must have been a hot wire champion. Let's see. I don't give a ladybug. Get on in here. Let's see. That's but Hendershot's actually pretty. Shit. You want war? I'll give you war. Hendershot's actually pretty easy to do.
I like the guy in the arcade when he just looks at the arcade machine and goes, Your mama.
Your mama. Yeah. Of course, I was just gonna say, I wish I could do Emilio Estevez's laugh, because that laugh is so damn infectious. Even when he's doing Billy the Kid and all that other stuff.
Stephen King wanted the boss, Bruce Springsteen, to be the lead. Obviously, that didn't happen. And then Busey wanted to play the lead, and they did not cast him.
You want to share his cocaine with Busey. And
Yeah, there would have been too much. The cocaine budget would have been too high with Busey.
Yeah, I was going to say they'd have to have a separate trailer for all the cocaine.
Yeah, there would be a truck of cocaine.
Wow.
So I had probably my favorite line in the movie, and I'll share that before I dive into the science, because the scientific possibilities of this one are actually pretty interesting. But there's a scene toward the end when the group is like making their way to the marina, and the kid's he gets the gun. They go to the drive-through speaker, and he goes and he shoots up the drive-through speaker, and he goes, "This is for my dad, you loudmouth son of a bitch." And then he like turns and gets morose and like hands the gun to one of the other characters and just goes, "I don't want this anymore." It's like, like just crazy weird like 180 in whatever he was thinking, and he got it out, and he shot up the speaker and made up for it, and then became a pacifist.
Yeah, wasting a menu is apparently very cathartic.
I mean, it was the 80s, right? It's but yeah, so from the very beginning, this movie kind of like throws some science at you, right? Like the initial introductory graphic tells you that there's this rogue comet, and the Earth is passing through its tail, and it visualizes it kind of strangely. It shows this big like green gassy cloud surrounding the Earth, which not so scientific there, but the idea of the Earth like passing through the tail of a comet. Well, we kind of mentioned earlier, comets' tails are basically made up of like bits of dust and gas that are coming off of the comet, off the core, off the body of the comet. And all that stuff does just stay in space. So as comets travel in those huge elliptical orbits around the sun, they leave a little like debris trail behind them. And at certain times each year, as the Earth goes around the sun, the Earth passes through different, basically little leftover debris fields from different comets. And those are when we have predictable meteor showers. So, meteors, most meteors are really small. They're bits of rock or dust, the size of your fingernail. And that, you can see meteors any clear night of the year, but when there are those meteor showers, when the Earth passes through those comet leftovers, you might be able to see dozens or even hundreds of meteors an hour from a nice dark location. The next big meteor shower is called the Geminids, and it'll be coming up in early to mid-December. But so like the Earth doesn't regularly pass through. The Earth could pass through the tail of a comet, but it's highly unlikely because space really is just huge. There's an incredible amount of empty space around all the planets. But we do pass through the leftovers, the sort of the remains of comets' tails, and we do that multiple dozens of times a year. And then the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting was they carried that like green cloud graphic through, because every time it was night in the movie, the sky was lit up, and it looked very much like the Aurora Borealis. It looked very much like the Northern Lights. You had this like green, hazy kind of wispy sky effect going on. Then again, you wouldn't get from the Earth passing through the tail of a comet, but the Aurora, the Northern Lights, which Aurora in a nutshell. So basically, the sun ejects plasma into space. You have these sort of solar prominences and these like eruptions, these explosions on the surface of the sun, and it just flings plasma and gas off into space. And here at the Earth, we have our two magnetic poles. We have the North Pole and the South Pole, and basically that plasma, that solar, that material from the sun is drawn toward the Earth's magnetic poles, and it interacts with the atmosphere. And that interaction with our atmosphere creates the Northern Lights and the Southern Lights, those kind of wispy, oftentimes green, but sometimes they can be other colors as well. There can be, reds and yellows. So it's kind of a weird like mashup of, I have to assume that was like an inspiration for them in creating that visual effect, was to try to recreate the Northern Lights, which was interesting. And then at the very end, something that I thought was actually interesting, I wanted to ask you guys about, because this was also a first watch for me. So in the sort of like prologue text panels at the end, they say, 2 days later, a large UFO was destroyed in space by a Russian weather satellite, which happened to be equipped with laser nuclear missiles. And I'm like, so I'm guessing there was some kind of implication that it was actually the UFO had like somehow set like it seemed just like really out of left field. Like, why are you introducing this concept of a UFO in the last like 30 seconds of the movie? And, like,
and not just introducing it, but in text. There's no visual component. There's no storytelling moment of this UFO thing. It's just in the text at the very end.
Yeah, and it was destroyed by by obviously a Russian like spy satellite or something. It's like, okay, cool, whatever. And then it mentioned that was actually another kind of interesting thing was they talked about, they used very precise from like the opening title card graphics. They were talking about how it was, the Earth passed into this comet tail at this precise moment, like it was like down to the second, and then it would pass out again in precisely 8 days or whatever it is. And yeah, it's not like we don't actually measure it that precisely, right? It's but again, I think maybe an attempt to like try to science it up a little bit and make it seem more complicated than it really is.
Trying to science it up in a movie that does not understand anything about science, including how machines work.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
They did like there was they did get an actual like picture of a comet. There was a newspaper early on announcing this arrival of the comet, and it was actually like they got an actual picture of a comet. So I was like, okay, that's
that's half the battle.
Check one in the good science column. That's
this movie's just so much fun.
So good. I mean, I know it's a lot of nostalgia for me because I saw it when I was way too young, probably, but I was a boy who played baseball and rode around the neighborhood on a bike and was afraid of pop machines after this. And man,
double barrel one, no less.
I don't know what it is. I can't I know all you guys keep saying I know it's not a good movie because of these technical flaws. I just don't even see them. I just love it.
There was a point where Yeardley Smith says, doesn't she say something like "eat my shorts"? I'm like, that's a fucking Bart Simpson line.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, maybe that's
where
it came from.
To the Bible salesman, she says, "Eat my shorts," and I'm like, what?
Prophetic.
I love the fact that when the Bible man runs out there to confront what he thinks is a drunk son of a bitch, as he calls him. I love the fact that he takes his Bible case with him. He doesn't. He has to take it outside with him, with his his I guess his sales case. Just thought
it's the Professor Harold Hill, like he's got to grab the merchandise and run kind of thing.
Another thing that I noticed is that Yeardley Smith, when they stop into that first gas station and see that dead attendant, where that truck first begins to chase them, she comes out of the car with the topper of their wedding cake. Like, why did she feel inclined to take that with her as she got out of the car? Was she holding it like a teddy bear or something, to protect her? I was like, why is she holding? What the? Why? It didn't make any sense to me.
I mean, the movie made perfect sense to me, but whatever.
Man, it's so good. I'm glad that we can have an excuse to talk about this movie every couple of years on the show and just keeps coming back. I love it.
I mean, even though it's not a good movie, but it's not a well-made movie or whatever, but it's so entertaining to me. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's fun. I think it's fun.
Who made you?
It's to call it a bad movie is a little bit of an injustice. It's just what I'm saying is, and what I think most of us are saying is, we recognize, especially on a story level, that that there's issues, but the movie still manages to do its job, to be a fun and entertaining hour-and-a-half thrill ride, despite all those issues, or maybe even because of those issues.
Yeah, a gun on a pole can totally turn itself around because it's a machine.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. It's space and stuff. You don't know.
A lot of weird stuff out there.
So it's a movie that you just in this day and age of making fun of and nitpicking plot holes or storylines or whatever when it comes to media, This is a movie that you have to turn all that off and just have fun, for crying out loud. Just have fun.
Yeah, I'm so glad we got some first time watches on this one.
I could
Always
think of like 100 different cooler things to mount an M90 machine gun on, other than like that glorified golf cart that it was put on. But whatever. I mean, hey, I'm cool with it. I still like the movie.
And didn't Emilio call that golf cart the muscle? Wasn't that when he's like, see, that one there's the leader. And that one's the muscle.
It was a great impression. That's good.
That was my Emilio, yeah.
I was say, I think Tad really summed it up earlier with like the AC/DC reference. It is just like a big, dumb, fun movie. Like it fits with the music. It's just this like stuff's going right from the get-go, and it's going to be weird and it's going to be out there, but just, go with it.
Have fun.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
I'm still overthinking the George Romero thing.
Yep.
Because now I'm thinking about specific scenes. I'm like, you know what? That does feel George Romero-y. Like that whole the whole bridge scene. You want to talk about editing? That does have some. Really feels like some George Romero editing. There's a lot of cuts in that to tell the. Oh man, this is getting to me.
Rewatch.
See what you did, Tad?
I'm glad I did this.
I'm glad you did too. I can't wait to rewatch it.
It is interesting. It's interesting. I had never heard that theory.
Yeah, me neither. But that's it for the those are the films for this episode. Doesn't mean the show is over though, folks. We still have a lot more to go. So we're going to take a quick break so you can hear all about our network, the Prescribed Films Podcast Network. We can hear dozens and dozens of shows just as cool, or if not cooler than this one. So check that out, and we will be right back, and it'll be segments time here on Attack of the Killer Podcast.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
And we're back. So it's time for segments here on Attack of the Killer Podcast to round out the show. And we're going to start off, as we always do, with some shout-outs.
It's time for shout-outs! 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 Shout-outs!
Everybody's favorite segment. So we asked everywhere, all our social medias, what is your favorite horror movie featuring a comet? And on our Facebook page, we got Eric Ian Steele says, Life Force.
Yeah.
That movie rules.
Yeah, it does. It's so good. Oh, I do, totally. Toby Hooper, man.
Oh, completely.
Patrick Stewart, right?
Naked Girl.
Yeah, Matilda May.
And then over in our Facebook group, the group edition, we got Brian Clark. He says Life Force is the correct answer. Although not technically comets, the green slime is a banger with the Sci-Fi Channel original Within the Rock, while Cheap and Derivative has a cool monster. We like monsters. Green slime? No.
Green slime is great, and it's got one of the greatest theme songs in cinema history.
How's it go?
Green slime.
I know there's a whole song for the title. It's crazy. Thanks, Brian. Oh, he's not done. He says, as long as I'm not playing by the rules.
He never does.
Brian start? Yeah. He says The Blob and Day of the Triffids, too. And most importantly, Ghidorah and the Three-Headed Monster. Hey, nerd, I hear you saying that's not horror. It has a girl getting possessed by a Martian ghost, and Ghidorah is basically a Lovecraftian great old one. So, yeah. That's Brian Clark. Had to be a Godzilla reference. Okay, we got Chris Anderson says, predictable answer, I know, but I love Night of the Comet.
Woo!
Hell yes. So good.
I just got that on Blu-ray for my birthday, and Nikki bought it for me.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
That's
I own
Scream Factory release?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, we just talked about it a couple episodes ago.
Which is why we didn't do it on this one.
Yep. Maybe made you think of this one, but
probably. I think that's where I did come up with the idea for this one.
And then lastly on the Facebook group, we got our new attacker, Colby Keefe says,
hey,
Attack the Block.
Oh, of course.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That movie
great
is
movie.
so good.
Allow it.
And yeah. Over on our Instagram, we got, he's not done. We got the Gore Score says, Critters. The townspeople thought it was a comet, so that counts, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Totally. And then we got Don and Nelly says, Valley of the Dragons is the only thing that comes to mind, although I smell a rewatch of Mosquito is necessary, as I can't remember if that's how they were mutated or not. Anybody? Mutated? Mosquito?
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. But Valley of the Dragons, I don't even know that movie.
Well, that's Don and Ellie for you. He gets some from the bottom of the barrel over there.
Early 60s. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, Don. And we didn't have anything on Twitter, but anyone listening, if you want to comment on the show and leave your comment, you can also do a voicemail. Send us a voicemail. You just call 415-952-6857 or 415-95-AOTKP. Leave us that voicemail. We will play it on the show. Get to hear your voice on the podcast. It's a lot of fun. Please do it. But we're not done yet. One more segment to go. Oh my gosh, guys, we got a new celebrity introduction. Here we go.
How you doing? This is old Buck Flower for Attack of the Killer podcast.
Fuck.
Now, you may have remembered me from films of old Johnny Carpenter, like Starman, The Fog, and They Live. And, maybe some other ones like the Cheerleader Camp and Sorority Babes and the Slime Ball Bolorama. I understand that old Insane Mike. Insane Mike. Yeah, pretty big fan, I hear.
Yeah, that's my favorite of yours, Buck.
Oh, well, thank you. Directly from me to you, I think I'd like to tell you what I told old Reggie Bannister in Wishmaster. Goes a little something like this. I hope you die, you sack of shit. I hope you die, and I hope you float down the gutter so I can fucking piss on you. Here's a little bit more of this idiot scratching his nuts again. Here's Insane Mike's picks.
And scratching my nuts I will. For this episode, I will be inducting a producer into Insane's Picks Hall of Fame. If William Castle is considered the poor man's Alfred Hitchcock, then this man is the sleazy poor man's Roger Corman. Producing 55 films in 20 years, I'm talking about Schlockmeister sex exploitation filmmaker Harry H. Novick. Harry Novick, known as the Sultan of Sexploitation, produced such classics as Kiss Me Quick, Please Don't Eat My Mother, and Wham Bam, Thank You Spaceman. At the start of his career in the motion pictures, he got a job with RKO Pictures, distributing movie posters and press books to theaters as a teenager. After World War II, he moved up to booking and selling films, as well as designing ads, even for Walt Disney Studios. After RKO folded in 1957, Harry went to work booking exploitation films for Gem Distribution Company. He eventually founded his own production and distribution outfit called Box Office International Pictures, or BIP for short, in 1964. The first film released by BIP was the nudie cutie Kiss Me Quick in 1964. Kiss Me Quick was originally titled Dr. Breedlove and was sort of a demented sex spoof of Bride of Frankenstein and Dr. Strangelove. It was shot in 6 days and was renamed to Kiss Me Quick to avoid a lawsuit from Stanley Kubrick. In 1968, the generally disturbing counterculture slasher horror Mantis and Lace, directed by William Rotsler, and was the first film for a young Hungarian cinematographer named Laszlo Kovacs. Kovacs did a lot of work for Novik before he became a big-time Hollywood cinematographer who ended up working on such films as Easy Rider, Ghostbusters, Say Anything, and so much more. Harry went on to make and/or release a bunch of trash flicks through the 60s and 70s, from sex softcore smut such as For Love and Money in 1967, Wilbur and the Baby Factory in 1970, Below the Belt in 1971, to sleazy southern fried hicksploitation sleaze such as Country Hooker in 74, Country Cousins in 72, and my favorite, The Pig Keeper's Daughter in 1972. Went on to also do Mondo documentaries such as Mondo Mod in 67, Mondo Keyhole in 66, and then even went into our world of horror films with such movies as Mad Butcher, 1971, Frankenstein's Castle of Freaks in 1974, Axe, which is an awesome movie, also in 1974, and of course the classic Rattlers in 1976. Box Office International Pictures was forced to shut down in 1978, but that wouldn't keep Harry down. He ended up launching Valiant International Pictures directly after that. Novik only directed a couple of films himself, Moments of Love in 1984 and Inspirations in 1983, under the pseudonym H. Hershey. Novik's films played all through the 60s through the 80s at drive-ins and grindhouse theaters. His catalog gained a second life in the world of DVD thanks to Something Weird Video, who gained most of Novak's films for distribution. Sadly, Harry Novak died on March 26, 2014. He left us a unique snapshot of sexploitation films from a bygone era. As I induct Harry into Insane's Picks Hall of Fames and get ready to close the vault once again, I will end with a quote from Harry, who said, "When I was a kid, my dad told me there's a buyer for everything, and I lived to find out he was right." So that's it for Insane's Picks and the inductee of Harry H. Novak. So that's it. That's the show, folks. A very special thanks to Mike Smail for joining us. Thanks for being on, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Mike.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
And it was really fun. A lot of times we have guests on and stuff, and just in the conversations in the movies, it was fun bringing a different angle to things by throwing in the science bit. So thanks for indulging us on that. That was really cool.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no problem. I mean, if you ever need another space and stuff guy, you know where to find me.
Absolutely.
He elevated us for sure.
That's right.
AKA, let me know when you're ready to do Armageddon, and we'll get drunk and have a good old time.
All right. So I'll end on this. Vast is so space and mysterious, and we've barely begun to understand it. What is in space can be scary sometimes, almost laughable. Like, remember when scientists said that a comet was supposed to hit Earth in October? How ridiculous that was!
Oh no, could this be the end of? Attack of the Killer Podcast. 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 It's the end of the show. See you next time.
Hey, you did it. Woo! That's awesome. You made it to the end of the episode.
Look at you.
Thanks for listening, guys.
You've come such a long way.
This was a real fun ride. This one was especially good, Mike.
I know.
I mean, I felt like I was on point, and my form was excellent.
You do have a nice form.
Hey, thanks. Head over to jointheattackers.com, and you can figure out how you can help support this show and get access to so much cool extra content. Check it out, guys. Jointheattackers.com.
Do it.